Welcome to SuperTalk, the podcast that scratches your superhero itch. Just two suburban dads nerding out over superhero stuff on the small screen and the big. Buckle up, people. Enjoy the ride.
Welcome to SuperTalk, the weekly podcast dedicated to news and reviews of comic book media on the big and small screen. This is episode 149. I'm your host, Brian Professor Pedersen. With me, as always, my illustrious co-host, Titanium, Tony Estrella. Titanium.
Professor. Yeah, 149. That's
Holy
awesome.
crap.
Yeah.
One away from 150.
Yeah, we got
buck 50 coming up next.
I know, man. That's something. We're going to have to do something big for our 200th episode in 7 years.
I hope to God we get there.
Yeah.
Look, we've been, I think, blatantly honest on this show about the state of things in comic book media. And look, recent events would lead us to believe things are getting better and going in a different direction that we can all hope for. You know, again, we started this podcast because it had been the best ever, and in the frankly 3 years that we've been doing this podcast, it's only gone downhill since. Ask Deadpool, he'll tell you coming in at a low point. But you know, recent events have given us some encouragement, and we'll kind of see. But you know, as we talked to in our kind of pre-show discussion, I think things that are coming up here in the near future may give us a little bit of okay, they're not as good as we thought. We'll see. So let's just start the show. We got a lot to talk about this week. Want to thank the listeners that bring the show to you. Those are our patrons. Patreon.com/SuperTalk is how you become a patron. Support the show directly. $1 episodes, really not that much. Really helps us out. Patreon.com/SuperTalk. And thanks to our patrons out there. No reviews this week. No new episodes. No new content. No new shows. There are a couple of shows starting next week, which we will talk about in our next episode. Specifically, Agatha All Along premieres next Wednesday, and then the Joker, not the Joker, the Penguin, Matt Reeves, world or Batman universe,
Elseverse,
the Elseworlds universe,
right.
And he's painted. With Colin Farrell, that you and I actually got to sit in on a session at Comic-Con,
and a great long clip of it.
Yeah. I mean, and frankly, what Colin Farrell did with that character in the Batman movie was phenomenal. I still don't believe it's him. And until we see him getting made up, I mean, I'm going to deny it all along. But look, we're looking forward to that. So those two series start next week, and we will promise to review at least the early episodes of those. And based on how those pan out, we'll see how we go from there.
Yeah.
As we've discussed.
In other words, people, we are going to tippy-toe through the muck that is projects made before a focus on main characters was back in Marvel. So we'll see.
My hopes are high for the Penguin. I think what Matt Reeves has done with the Batman universe, and remaking or retelling the story that we've seen so many times. Not only, I mean, Batman's been around the comics for, 75 years now. It's crazy. But we've seen Batman portrayed in the movies many times over now by many different actors. And Robert Pattinson, just the latest one. But what Matt Reeves has reimagined with this universe, I think it holds some promise, just because it is really a different way to tell the story of a character we know so well. But I love the fact that he's now directing some focus on these side characters and these villains and getting it. You and I have talked about this at length on this podcast, that great villains make great movies and great TV shows.
Yeah.
Without question. If you have great villains, your investment in the heroes of those shows are so much more compelling because the villains they're fighting against.
Yeah.
And I love the fact that he's dedicating an entire series on HBO Max to a villain that you and I grew up watching, Burgess Meredith play this character, and in the 60s Batman television show. I mean, I'm so excited about
Oh
that. I
yeah,
mean, I
me
think
too.
it's going to be great.
Matt Reeves has come out and said that he's going to focus more on villains and characters that are more realistic and grounded, not these fantastical. I think that was the words that he used, fantastical, like, Mr. Freeze and all these other. They're going to be more realistic and more down to earth. And the next Batman, he said, is going to be really focused on Batman and the development of the Batman character,
That's great.
which is huge. I mean,
That's
that's what
great.
we're looking for. A lot of these movies, besides the Nolan movies, kind of focused on Batman a little bit, and then switched to what was happening, or a threat, or the villains themselves, which was great. But the Nolan movies kind of focused on Batman and the development of Batman throughout this, and then the villains were there for him to.
Well, you know what? I think that I give a lot of credit to DC Comics and what they have done over the years with the cadre. I mean, Batman and Spider-Man have the best cadre of villains in the history of comic books. With there's no debating that. I mean, they do. You look at all the Batman villains, and they're the names that we all recognize.
Oh,
Same thing with Spider-Man
right.
in the Marvel universe, but um, I love what Christopher Nolan did, and that's one of the best things about the Batman character is that the villains are, I think, more realistic villains, because even the ones that have some kind of ability or power, they seem plausible,
Yeah.
right? And you look at what he did with Christopher Nolan specifically did with the Batman universe. First movie, the villain was the League of Shadows, which, again, drawing back from the comic books, was
Ninjas.
well, basically, kind of, we'll say, an Asian gang, right?
Yeah.
That used the underworkings of the criminal underworld to manipulate
Hmm.
politicians and cities and world events and everything else. It was brilliant because
Hmm.
it's plausible. I mean, that could really happen. And second movie, focus on the Joker, who is got no superpowers, zero
Yeah.
superpowers. He's just a crazy MFing,
Yeah.
genius.
Yeah.
And that's his superpower. He's a genius, but he's crazy. Again, plausible,
Right.
right? Really plausible. And then you go into the third movie and you have Bane. Again, very plausible character.
Yeah.
You look at what that character is. And in the comics, it kind of strays a little bit. There is some kind of
Supernatural powers.
green goo that he absorbs and becomes,
Right.
super strength and all kinds of other stuff. But that I just love the way Nolan did that. But you see what Matt Reeves did in his first movie with Batman, focused on the Riddler.
Right. Paul Dano, excellent.
Again, a character, no superpowers, just
Phenomenal.
somebody who is insane and smart as hell, and uses his insanity and his genius to manipulate the Batman and others. Or it was brilliant.
Penguin,
Penguin's another
great.
good
Street
example.
level, working his
Exactly.
way up. I mean,
Exactly.
brilliant. Yeah.
Exactly. So I
I
really
think that's
love.
what he meant by not fantastical creature.
Right.
Like,
Well, there's
villain.
rumors that that Mr. Freeze is going to be part of the next Batman movie, and
Or Hush.
or Hush potentially.
Mhm.
That's a bit of a stretch, and that's, I'll say, so the Hush comic books, um, late '90s, early 2000s. I mean, they're much more recent than the kind of the historical kind of Batman cadre villains. Hush came much later. But if Mr. Freeze is, I mean, Mr. Freeze is a good example of an individual who had an accident, and the accident caused the need for his body to be kept at a sub-zero temperature
Right.
all the time, but again, plausible, right? I mean, it's fantastical at the same time, but still plausible.
Yeah.
Look, I trust Matt Reeves, and I love the fact that James Gunn has given Matt Reeves kind of the leash
Yeah.
to just grow this Elseworlds universe and say, let's just make something that's compelling and new and great and can stand on its own, and we don't have to worry about it tying into other
Right.
movies or how's this going to fit into the Justice League someday. You don't
Yeah.
have to worry about any of that.
No.
Just write great stories, hire great actors to play great characters. That's all you got to do. And it's a good formula.
I think it works. I mean, I
Oh.
really like that movie. So, and I think
And
people
again,
did.
Colin Farrell, by the way, nominated for an Oscar last year, and he's a phenomenal actor.
No question.
And his portrayal of this character has been, and we could see this if you remember, in the Comic-Con session that we went to about the Penguin series, he was filming something else overseas, and he was in on Zoom, and everybody else was there on the panel. But the passion and just the love he had of the character just came through. He was just so excited about it.
The
right?
way he was talking about the character that was created, and the positive feedback he got from Matt and the whole crew about it. It really came across.
And they talked about, like, in the first Batman movie, he had like 13 minutes of screen time as the Penguin. 13 minutes. But what he did in those 13 minutes were so
powerful.
Oh, they were. And then it garnered not only a HBO Max series, but, obviously he's going to play a role in this universe going forward. I love it. And I'm looking forward to that show on HBO Max so much because I think Colin Farrell is going to bring it. And you saw some of the other actors they had hired to be part of the series. And I think it's going to be great.
Yeah, I think Falcone's daughter is in it. She's going to play a huge role coming out of the insane asylum or wherever she was.
She was in Arkham, I believe.
Yeah,
right. Yeah. So I'm looking forward to that a lot.
Yeah, me too.
I think you and I can both agree that our hopes for Agatha All Along are not as high.
I'm going to reserve until I actually see it, but I'm not as excited about Agatha as I am the Penguin. Again,
Look, there's a lot of marketing going behind it. There's a lot. You said they're showing trailers in front of movies.
Yeah.
They did a big thing at D23.
I made a comment that I felt that was somewhat desperate, and people jumped all over that.
In Marvel's defense, as we said the same thing when Deadpool and Wolverine came out. This is their showcase Disney Plus television series this year. They don't have a lot. They don't have any other movies coming out. Deadpool and Wolverine's been out. And by the way, $1.28 billion now. I mean, it is, I think I looked it up. It's number 23 all time now. Highest grossing movies all time. Number 23 will at some point in time may surpass Civil War as one of the biggest Marvel movies ever, which is, and it's still in the theaters. You go to theaters, they're still playing Deadpool and Wolverine on two screens.
Yeah, people are still
everywhere. I mean, and a lot of it's because there's not a lot else out right now, but still killing it. But we said this when that movie came out, that this was their only movie. They're going to put every marketing dollar they have behind this movie, and they did, and it's paid off. They're doing the same thing with Agatha All Along. They've done this before, ladies and gentlemen, and with mixed results. And what I'll say is every marketing dollar in the world won't help a poor product be good. It'll just help you check the poor product out, and then you'll decide on your own whether it's good or not.
Agree. Yeah.
So we'll see.
We will see.
Reserving judgment,
but
we'll see. All right. Well, let's get into the news. We got a ton of stuff that's happened in the last and since our last episode, so we'll talk through some of that. Last episode, we did talk through some of the drama between Marvel Studios and Bo DeMeo, and this is continuing. Even more details have come out here. Another article from the Hollywood Reporter came out this past week, really detailing Bo DeMeo's side of the argument and what's happening on his side and his lawyers and what they're doing. They're suing Marvel directly for what he calls a
toxic environment,
toxic workplace environment. Specifically, a lot of claims regarding some of the hostile work conditions for the VFX artists. Obviously he worked very closely and very heavily on X-Men 97, and talked about just the work conditions and the work hours that the VFX artists were working under. And when he raised complaints or said something about it. He was vilified for it. And that was something that he feels is being used against him. Other claims
The
of
animators, you mean?
yeah, the animators, yeah, all the VFX artists, yeah, the
Mhm.
animators specifically, um, that his identity as a gay black man was weaponized within the organization, was used against him, and that homosexuality was kind of a sensitive subject within Marvel, and it was one that they didn't want to draw attention to, and that anything that he was doing to sensationalize that or draw attention to it, he had reached out to like RuPaul's Drag Race or something to kind of help promote X-Men 97 and was vehemently denied to be able to do that by Marvel and all kinds of other things, which I think is at the root of a lot of this. Um, and then he had noticed a bunch of inappropriate relationships that were happening on set between producers and production assistants and other things. And when he saw these things, inappropriate relationships happening, raised concerns about them to some of the higher ups at the company, and he was not only they were shelved and nothing was done about that, but his complaints, but he was also blackballed because of them. So lots of claims on
This
Bo
is from
DeMeo's side.
his camp,
This is his side of
his
the
lawyer,
story.
and from his camp. Mhm.
Right. So again, we've heard kind of Marvel's side of this, Marvel Studios side of this.
Let me ask you a question, and let me get your take your temperature on this. If those all those accusations are true, why wouldn't he come out in a open, free forum and tell everybody about it? Why would he direct people to his fans only page,
OnlyFans page.
only fans
He's done a
page?
lot of stuff on his OnlyFans page.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean that's where
Look,
he told his whole side of the story, but it's a pay for information.
right.
I mean, I don't
Look,
understand
I'm
that.
just gonna throw this out there. I have a suggestion for an open forum where he could come on and give some thoughts and opinions
Invitation,
openly.
open
Look, we
invitation.
met Bo at D23
Yeah.
at Comic-Con, and he was incredibly gracious and friendly, and again, personally, I want to thank Bo DeMeo for what he did on X-Men 97, and some of his claims that he made were that some of the executive producers of the show wanted them to write brand new content and stories for the series, and he was really focused on taking and drawing stories from the comic books and
Mhm.
bringing them to the animated series because he said, I'm looking out for the fans. And he felt like he was being penalized for that because he was like, I'm just looking out for the fans. The fans want to see Bastion. They want to see,
Mhm.
the trial of Magneto. These are the stories they want to see. They want to see the fall of Genosha.
It's true.
And by the way, it's what made that series great
Yeah.
is drawing from those stories. And we've said that before, that the content that they can draw from is the reason why the characters are compelling. So I want to give him all the credit in the world for that. But if he wants to come on Super Talk Podcast, he's welcome. We
I
are.
don't think he's interested in that. I don't think he's interested in a free form to tell his
You
side
don't
of the
know.
story.
You don't know that.
He's directing everybody to a pay application.
Bo,
Yeah.
if you want to come on an open forum, look,
Huh.
we met you. We're friendly. We'll hear you out. Let you air it out here on Super Talk Podcast.
Yeah, all four of our fans are definitely looking forward. I mean, I'm sure my mom would love to hear your side of the story. So,
Hey, it could happen.
it could.
So anyway, the drama continues, and I think
Yeah.
there's more to this story. I think this is unfortunately a lot of this is being played out in the media, and until we get court dates and things like that. Unfortunately, look, the Emmys I believe are next week, and he has not been invited. He is not able to attend, and X-Men 97 has been nominated for Emmy Awards because it is awesome. And that's a shame.
Yeah.
He had a lot to do with how good it was. So, whether you agree or disagree with his lifestyle choices or how he chooses to portray himself in social media and those types of things, the product at the end of the day stands on its own. And Bo, I want to personally thank you for what you did with X-Men 97. It was one of the best things that I've seen on Disney Plus ever. So thank you for that. So, all right, we'll go forward.
We'll see how it all shakes out.
Yeah. big announcement from Marvel in that they came out and publicly stated, which is kind of strange for them, that the fate of the Blade movie and the Iron Wars project, we'll call it the Iron Wars project because it was originally slated to be a Disney Plus series, then promoted to be a motion picture, and now it's kind of sitting there in the kind of the pre-production limbo of like we don't know what they're going to do with it. But the fate of those two projects are going to be decided by Marvel here in the next couple of months. And they're really going to decide, do they move forward, or if they choose to move forward, when they're going to move forward and how it's going to happen. A lot of people have been asking what's going on with these things because were projects that were announced years ago, and they're wondering what's happening. And they've said, yeah, we're going to make a decision here shortly. Some compelling news came down here just recently that there's now a very strong story out there that they've tagged the John Wick director, Chad. I'm going to butcher his name.
Good, finally.
Chad Stahelski, who is the director of all the John Wick movies. He has openly basically said that if there's only one project I would be interested in at Marvel, and it's the Blade project.
Right.
So he has campaigned for this job, on his own. Anybody that's watched any of the 4 John Wick movies, which by the way are phenomenal, will think if you could bring some John Wick feel and kind of concepts to a Blade movie,
any kind of combat, any kind of camera angle,
kidding me?
Fast action cuts, camera angles.
But just the way that he handles the character too.
I'm all for it.
So he would be, I mean, if I had to choose somebody to be a director of the Blade movie, that might be one of my top choices.
No question.
So the rumors are that he is now the leading candidate to take over the project as director, which would be incredible. If Marvel pulls that off, I'm just going to tell you right now. So here's what I'll say. As long as Mahershala Ali is still connected to this project, it has legs. Mm-hmm. The minute that he backs out, or the minute that his contract expires, or his obligations to the company expire, I'm sure they gave him a bag of money to be part of this project and to have influence on it, and whatever be attached to it, knowing that he would get paid even more when the movie came out. As long as he's attached, I feel that this still has life. If they bring this director on and they get the script nailed down, I think it's happening. I believe Marvel would love Blade to come out before Secret Wars. I believe Marvel would love Blade to be part of Secret Wars in some form or fashion. Mm-hmm. We saw the reception of Wesley Snipes' Blade character in Deadpool and Wolverine. It was awesome. And his kind of interesting comments or his statements during the movie of, there's only been one Blade and there's only ever going to be one Blade. Yeah. It was kind of interesting. But I think look, this character is great. And I think the right story could make a great movie. And you and I have said this many times before. The promise of what Blade coming into the MCU brings for things like the Midnight Suns or a kind of dark side mm-hmm. of the MCU, focused on the supernatural, mm-hmm. right? You've got Werewolf by Night, you've got Moon Knight, you've got Blade, you've got the Black Knight, you've got Doctor Strange, you've got all of the pieces there mm-hmm. for a Midnight Suns kind of run of just focusing on the supernatural, have a team or a group of individuals focused on that. And the story, look, there's been hundreds of comics written about these types of threats that they could fight against. And so they have plenty of material to draw upon. Yeah. I think it'd be great. So that's what I'm excited about. And again, one of those
rumor is, though, both projects are on a respirator.
They're on a respirator, mm-hmm. and they're going to decide what's going to happen to them.
They're going to decide very soon.
My feeling is Blade will happen, and hopefully before Secret Wars.
And Armor Wars.
Armor Wars is going to be shelved.
Okay.
I just think the concept behind the story is not compelling enough to really garner any attention before a Secret Wars kind of story that they're telling.
Yeah.
And, can Don Cheadle hold the movie by himself? And
He probably could. I mean, Don Cheadle's
well,
pretty talented, but
which version of Rhodey is it?
yeah, exactly. And Ironheart was supposed to be a big part of that. That's been pushed and pushed and pushed. So yeah, a Blade thing, love it. Love to see it move forward, the supernatural aspect of it.
Again, that's a movie that could stand on its own.
Of course it could.
It doesn't
Have
need
an
to tie.
Oscar-winning lead.
It doesn't need to tie into anything that's going on in the MCU.
No.
It could be a standalone movie and be like, oh, well, after they're done with all the Secret War stuff, they're going to do all this Midnight Sun stuff. I mean, that would just be great.
Of course. Or do a whole chapter of the,
right. And again, Doctor Strange 3.
You could bring in, Ghost Rider. You could bring in, introduce all these. Ghost Rider film could stand on its own theoretically.
Right.
That's a huge.
Has before.
Yeah.
Well, and Doctor Strange 3, which is now heavily rumored to be in pre-production, is going to focus on Doctor Strange and Clea and some other stories.
I love this new, we're not going to tell you what's coming projects anymore because there's so much.
Like it.
Yeah, me too. There's so much anxiety and frustration with them announcing projects.
Promising things that don't happen.
Here's what we got for phase 9. This project, that project, and then half of it gets
so funny
up.
when they made fun of that in The Boys. Oh, it was so funny when they did that. That was hilarious.
Yeah.
But speaking of that, the Brad Winderbaum, who's the executive producer of Marvel Television, was doing some promotion for Agatha All Along, and he was asked directly a question about the Nova project, which has been heavily rumored, and he confirmed in the interview, the Nova project is in pre-production at Marvel. It's in pre-production.
Yeah.
But he said, let me be clear. We are going to develop many more projects than we produce. So just because a project's in development doesn't mean we're going to make it.
Right.
So they are doing there's a lot of projects at Marvel right now that are in development.
Vision Quest, one of them.
Right.
Vision Quest Nova, that's one of them.
Right.
It's in development.
In development that they may never make. Yeah. So he clearly stated a Nova project's in development.
Which they should have done for Wonder Man. Have you heard anything about that series?
So
they
it was the one thing that I was hoping to hear something about between Comic-Con and D23 that we heard nothing. And it's done.
It's done.
Right.
So is Ironheart. We didn't hear anything about that.
Well, but Ironheart's been done for a long time.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Wonder Man, not so much. But again, Brad Winderbaum coming out and basically saying the new way that Marvel's doing things, we're going to develop a lot of things, but we're only going to produce so many things. Yeah. And I love that. I love the fact that they're throwing stuff up against the wall and see if it sticks. And if it doesn't, they're just like, yeah, we're not going to throw any money behind this. This is a waste of time. Right.
Throw and get a lot of eyes on it and a lot of opinions from people that know the back history catalog of these characters.
Right.
Not just some crazy writers in a room that are forced to be in that writer's room or required to be in that writer's room, and their input into these huge, rich-based characters actually mean nothing because they've never read the comics. Right. They have no idea what the background story is, their origin story is. They're just good writers, supposedly, that are going to help develop these stories, and their input, I think, has destroyed a lot of projects.
Yeah, but the one thing I do like about what we know is in development right now, you mentioned Vision Quest, which another news item here, James Spader has been confirmed to return as Ultron for the Vision Quest series. So again, in development. And if they choose to move forward with this, James Spader is coming back as Ultron for that, which is huge. I mean,
that's a home run.
He was awesome.
Yeah.
In Age of Ultron as Ultron, just played that character so well, and to bring him back, that'd be awesome.
Yeah.
But again, this does lead me to believe that what we've heard is true. They are focusing on the A or B plus list characters and drawing attention to them and centering projects around those. Yeah. And Nova and Vision, I would qualify as B plus characters. You know, they've been part of the Marvel comics universe for decades. And they're core characters, right? That everybody knows.
Characters, yeah.
So look, we'll see what happens. And I agree with you, Titanium, that I'm a little bit more encouraged by the subterfuge of them not telling us exactly what's happening, but giving us enough to believe that stuff is happening,
Yeah.
and not promising us anything they're not going to deliver on.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah, me too.
And again, we saw it point blank from Kevin Feige. We went to Comic-Con. They focus on what's coming out.
Yeah.
Here's what we know is coming out.
Yeah.
Here's the next 3 movies we have coming out. Boom, boom, boom. And then we got the Comic-Con panel, Doomsday and Secret Wars. Those are the things we know are coming out.
You know who doesn't love it? The Hollywood shills.
Oh, no, they hate it.
Yeah, they hate it because they got nothing to talk about,
Right.
but rumors. And now and you can feel it in the industry. You can feel this panic and this necessity to find out scoops. And I follow a lot of them just because I want to know what bullshit is out there or what kind of rope they're trying to hang us with. But it's insane. It's so weird.
The number of videos and content that people have been posting around. We've figured out what the post-credit scene is going to be in Fantastic Four. We figured out the plot of the Fantastic Four movie. We figured out how they're going to introduce Dr.
They're desperate
Doom.
for content.
They are, because they know nothing.
They know nothing. And so they're all speculations, and they're all trying to connect dots, and they're all trying to speculate this and that. And I'm sure
if we get 1 out of 10 right, we're going to say, oh, see, we told you guys.
Well, a lot of these scoopers have inside information, like Daniel PK and all these other, what?
RPK, Daniel
RPK. Yeah. He's got all these insider information that he gets these bits and pieces of. And it's like slim to none. He's talking about stuff that he's talked about already. And now he's even referring to other scoopers stealing his stuff. I didn't say that. I never said that exactly. I said this and this. So it's this weird thing going on with these scoopers and these Hollywood shills. It's actually quite fascinating, but I appreciate the grind because that's how they make money.
It is. That's how they make money.
That's how they make money. So I appreciate the grind. Thank God we don't have that problem.
That's how we make money.
Yeah.
Oh, wait a minute.
Yeah. Wait a minute.
But yeah, look, I'm on the same page as you, Titanium. I understand that they have to speculate because there's nothing out there other than speculation. But it is interesting how they're trying to break down. They're really, grasping at this point in time. And again, I'm going to give credit to Kevin Feige and Marvel for taking a step back.
Yeah.
Saying, look, we overpromised and underdelivered
Big
for
time.
3 straight years.
Yeah.
We did. Overpromised and underdelivered for 3 straight years. I mean, it was a disaster across so many different spectrums.
Yeah.
We're going to change that. We're going to get back to doing what we do well. And I'd rather them underpromise and overdeliver at this point in time. And again, it's what they did with Deadpool and Wolverine. I'm not saying they underpromised. They did promise a lot with that, but it lived up to it. I mean, and that's what we want. We want to go to the movie theater excited, surprised. And when there's a post-credit scene, it means something. I mean, how many we're going to do this next episode, people. We're going to break down every post-credit scene from every Marvel movie and television show. And we're going to talk about if they were paid off, how they were paid off, or if they've never been paid off.
There's quite a few.
There's a lot of them out there.
It hasn't been paid off.
Right. Yeah. So we'll talk through them all.
Yeah. And then, the people that are saying, marketing. Well, they didn't market that enough. They didn't do enough to market it. They didn't do enough to market it. Listen, in my opinion, I think Deadpool and Wolverine was over marketed. I was going to go see it twice or 3 times.
They were marketing it to you and me.
Yeah, but I'm telling you right now, even the novice fans, which they were marketing it to, they didn't have to do so much, and they did. So I'm just saying that if it's a good story, if it's a quality story, if it makes sense, if it pulls in the novice fan and the diehards like us, marketing will handle itself. You know what the best number one, it's not Google marketing trait there is out there, or what you can do
word of mouth.
Market is word of mouth. That is word of mouth is the number one greatest, strongest marketing aspect you can use. So if Agatha is going to be good, if it's really good, word of mouth will take care of it itself, and will
There's
handle
not a
it.
commercial or a promotion or anything you can trailer or anything you can do to promote something that people don't collectively agree is great.
Yeah.
And this is coming from a marketing genius, by the way. Titanium is what he does for a living. So all right, hey, some other good news, and I'll temper this a little bit because I know your thoughts around this, but Marvel recently came out and one of, I'll say, the most encouraging things that have come out, and we heard a lot about this at D23, was that they canonized all of the Netflix television series that came out from Marvel over the years, specifically Daredevil, Jessica Jones, Luke Cage, Iron Fist, and Defenders and Punisher. All that's been canonized, and we know now that Daredevil Born Again is really just Daredevil season 4. They're building on what's happened in the past on the
Yeah.
Netflix series and just going with season 4, bringing back the Punisher. We know the Punisher's in that series. We know that Bullseye's in that series. It's just building on what's happened in the past, and they've now officially said everything that happened on Netflix is now part of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Fantastic.
Great.
Make it happen. They've now said that every one of those characters, if you weren't sure, every one of those characters has officially been canonized, including Luke Cage, Iron Fist, Jessica Jones. And again, rumors still out there that we might see Jessica Jones in the second half of Daredevil Born Again, maybe not the first half.
Great.
Kristen Ritter has dropped a bunch of rumors about her
Awesome
involvement in the
show.
project. Oh yeah,
Love
she was
Jessica
great
Jones.
portrayal of that
Yeah.
character. And Mike Coulter's portrayal of Luke Cage was fantastic as well, both in Jessica Jones season 1 and in his own series.
I just commented on that I think the other day about perfect castings.
Oh,
You know?
well, my wife and I have been watching Evil, which he's on that television series Evil,
Uh-huh.
which is I believe it's on Paramount Plus now, but originally it was on CBS or whatever. Um, he's just fun.
Yeah.
I like him a lot. He's
Yeah.
just great. And the most encouraging part of this for Titanium is they said they're going to make major adjustments to Finn Jones's version of Danny Rand going forward. And I know you had specifically a lot of negative feedback around Finn Jones and his portrayal of Danny Rand in the Iron Fist. I thought what he did as the Iron Fist in Luke Cage season 2 was great. I think the 2 Iron Fist seasons were a little weak.
Mm-hmm.
And they said they're making major adjustments to not only the character, but Finn Jones's portrayal of that character.
Great.
And I think whether you like Finn Jones or not, as Danny Rand or Iron Fist, you can only do so much with what's been written.
Agree.
Okay. And I think a lot of it might have been how that character was written. And so they said they're going to make some major adjustments there. But the fact that they're bringing them all back and they're talking now about doing a Marvel Knights series. So KNIGHTS Knights. Marvel Knights was a comic book run that they did back in, I want to say, like kind of the mid 2005, 2006. And it was, Daredevil, Iron Fist, Punisher. It was really the street level characters, really focusing on street level crime and street level stuff. I'm all for it. Like bring back the Defenders, but
Right.
do it the
But
right
do it
way.
right way. Yeah.
Right. I think it's great. I love the street level version of what, and that's why I'm so much looking forward to Daredevil Born Again, is because I think there's so many great stories in the comic books about those characters and what they're facing in their neighborhoods of New York City or
Yeah.
Harlem or whatever it is. And I'm really looking forward to that. So great news for me. I think you and I have a little bit of nostalgic love for the Netflix series, in where we've said that they did get drawn out a little bit, and just because of the 13 episode obligation they had, the stories kind of drug along a little bit too far sometimes.
Yeah.
But some of the stories were great. Some of the character portrayals were great. I mean, again, I'll put those 2 seasons of Jessica Jones and the 3 seasons of Daredevil up there against anything. I mean,
No
they
question.
were all
Yeah.
really,
Some of my
really
favorites.
well done.
Those are my favorites.
Um, I don't know if you saw this. You and I didn't talk about this. I almost sent it to you, but I didn't want to send it to you. I didn't want to hear your opinion until we got to the show. Josh Brolin has been tagged to play Hal Jordan.
He's been offered the position.
Offered the position.
Yeah.
So he's been offered the position of Hal Jordan.
Yeah.
In the Lantern series that they're doing on HBO Max.
So this is interesting. Here's my opinion on that.
It's so funny in so many ways.
Yeah.
By the way.
Yeah. I mean, for him to steal Josh Brolin would be hilarious.
From Ryan Reynolds. But if you remember when Brolin and Reynolds were doing promotions for Deadpool 2, Brolin like made fun of Reynolds so much about Green Lantern and the animated suit and all the other stuff during their kind of like their interviews and stuff. And now for him to be playing the character that Ryan Reynolds played.
Well, he even made a comment to Cable in the prison fight. He's like, "Oh, you're so dark. What are you, a DC character?" I actually like Josh Brolin a lot. I think he'd be phenomenal.
Played the best villain in Marvel history.
So he's been offered it. Also, as a backup, Chris Pine has been thrown in there, and 2 other actors have been thrown in there as possibilities for the Lantern series or the Lantern show.
And again, from what we've heard about the Lanterns series, we've been told it's going to be Hal Jordan and
John Stewart
version of Green Lantern in kind of like a true detective style of show.
So space cops, like the true
like a space investigation, right?
And I made a comment on X the other day. I said, I'm all for it. An older Hal Jordan
and a younger
John Stewart kind of teaming up as like, and in my envision, let me get
paint it for us, Titanium.
In my envision, remember the movie Seven?
Yes.
With Freeman and Brad Pitt.
Oh, it'd be awesome.
What if it's like that?
Oh, it'd be awesome.
What if it's a type of Seven movie, but space detectives, but that kind of intense, that kind of, suspense, unreal. I will lose my mind.
Again,
that would be phenomenal.
We have to trust in James Gunn.
Yeah.
I think he knows what he's doing here. And I do believe that the long-term Green Lantern, Earth-based Green Lantern in the James Gunn DCU is going to be John Stewart. And I think casting Josh Brolin as kind of the Hal Jordan, the original Hal Jordan, kind of older, it'd be very similar to what they did with Hank Pym in Ant-Man. They cast a much older character, is well beyond his years, right? Michael Douglas. And they brought Scott Lang's version of Ant-Man on to be the Ant-Man of the MCU. I think the same thing could happen in the DCU with the Green Lantern, that it's going to be the John Stewart version of Green Lantern that we're going to see in whatever they end up doing.
The John Stewart version, and then the Hal Jordan version, maybe kill him off.
Yeah, potentially.
I mean, that would be dramatic. Yeah. That would be huge. That would make a statement. Don't get me wrong. I would love
but
those
there's
two.
other ways to do it. I mean, Hal Jordan eventually ended up going to Oa, and that was his home base for some time while John Stewart took over Earth. And there's lots of things that they could do from the comic books. They don't have to kill him off necessarily. They could figure a bunch of things out. But
a Space Detective 7, how badass would that be?
I'm looking.
We trust
Green
James
Lantern
Gunn until we don't.
Green Lantern's a cool character,
Yeah,
man.
he is.
I mean, it really is. They've got
the Lantern Corps.
It's really cool. And again, this is another one. I thought Ryan Reynolds could think differently. I thought the Green Lantern movie was actually pretty good.
I didn't mind it.
I mean, Blake Lively.
Come on,
yeah. But I thought it wasn't that bad.
It wasn't horrible. It wasn't. I tell you what, it's not my top 5 worst comic book movies.
God, no.
It's not in my top 5 worst comic book movies.
I would actually put it like in the middle of the pack.
It's a little lower for me, but yes, I agree with you. It's not.
If we had to rank every comic book movie ever made.
Yeah.
Oh, here's a good question. Is it better than Zack Snyder's Justice League?
No.
The original, not the Snyder cut.
Oh.
The original.
Ooh, now you threw a curveball on me because I don't even think of that version anymore.
The Snyder cut, I think, was better, but the original was not good.
It wasn't great.
And I actually thought the Green Lantern movie was kind of entertaining.
Yeah. Yeah. So in that same vein, would you 2015 Fantastic Four over the Green Lantern?
Oh God, that's in the bottom 3.
That's in my bottom 3 too.
Oh, that's got to be one of the worst ever.
That might be
Right
number
above the
2.
Marvels.
Yeah. The Marvels is in my bottom 5, but not that
Yeah.
high up. In my
Yeah.
mind.
All right. You had mentioned to me this past week that I guess they showed Joker Folie Douce
The Venice Film
at
Festival.
the
Yeah.
Venice Film Festival,
Uh-huh.
and early reviews were mixed.
Big time mixed. Yeah. Not a big critic favorite amongst a lot
It
of
was like
people.
59% critic rating or something.
Yeah, 53, I
Yeah,
think,
something
on
like that.
on that vegetable critic site that I don't like at all. But I read some of the reviews about it, and some people are like, yeah, Lady Gaga is great, but it's just like there's no real substance to it. And the music is oddly weird.
I'm
We've always
not
feared that.
looking forward to this movie.
Yeah. I think
They hit a home
Joaquin
run with
Phoenix
the
is
first
amazing.
one.
Yeah, I think he's
Hit
a
a home
great
run
actor.
with the first one.
Yeah.
Joaquin Phoenix was amazing, nominated for an Oscar for the movie. It's up until Deadpool and Wolverine was the highest grossing rated R movie of all time. Did very well in the box office. I'm not looking forward to the sequel.
He basically came out and said in an interview that he's done. Like this is it for him.
Yeah.
Which
begs to
which makes
leads you
me believe, yeah,
yeah,
that he didn't like the way this one turned
Yeah.
out, and it's going to be received poorly, and he's going to get the blunt of it. So he's done, and he's preempting that by saying
Yeah.
that. That's my opinion of what he's doing, but we'll see. I'm not looking forward to this, and I haven't been ever since I heard it was going to be a musical. I'm like, what? A musical? Now, Lady Gaga as Harley Quinn, I'm all for it. I think that works. I think she's a decent actress. But the whole music incorporation and the fantasy kind of musical numbers and dance numbers.
I think I have a feeling you and I are going to go see that movie and be like, that was strange.
Yeah,
And
we'll see.
I just don't think it's going to be great.
I don't either.
Again,
We reserve
judgment until we know more.
judgment. Yeah.
All right, well, let's get to our topic of the week this week, and it's brought to us by our friends at Studio GG Studios, home of the Man Band, Corn on the Cob.
Yep.
Studio G, I hope you guys are doing well, enjoying the end of your summer.
We got a little twist for everybody tonight, don't we?
A little bit. So when we were at Comic-Con in San Diego, I had gone through a bunch of my comic books and pulled a handful of them out that I wanted to get rated. I've never done this before, had never gone through the process of rating comic books before. And I've got, several that I feel have some value. But most of them, which I'll talk through here as we go through them, I've had for a long, long time, and I wanted to get them rated. And just so happened that at Comic-Con, CGC, the Comic Grading Corporation, has a booth at Comic-Con where you can drop off comic books that you want to get graded. And I was like, well, we're going to be there. I'll just bring them with me. And we dropped them off. I had about, I'd say 14 or 15 of them I wanted to get graded. And these are ones, and I basically said, so there is a cost to getting them graded. Not only the processing of shipping and all kinds of other things, but they charge you to kind of go through the whole process of grading them. And so like anything not worth more than $30 or $40 is just not worth grading, because you're going to pay that much to get it graded to begin with. Right. So you kind of got to look for more of your higher value comics. And so I had picked out like,
and as a comic guy, you kind of can look at a book and be like, oh, that's a pretty good shape, or well, that's got a thumb turn on it, and this has got a
yes
little
and no
staple rip here.
What I'll say is that, okay, almost every one of the comics that I got graded, I've owned since I bought them in the store.
Mm-hmm.
So again, I bought most of these comics. I started buying comic books when I was a teenager. So we're looking at mid to late 1980s. I know people, I look a lot younger. But mid to late 1980s, I started buying comic books, and I was, teenager, and I would go to my local comic book store, Jolly Roger. Anybody who grew up in the Annandale Falls Church area might remember Jolly Roger. So went to the Jolly Roger comic book store, had a subscription, and would buy my comics. And I had, certain ones that I got every week, and then you'd walk in there, and there were certain ones that people were like, "Oh, this is going to be a good one," or whatever, and you'd buy a couple, just because you thought they were good collectibles. So I've owned most of the comics I've gotten graded for 30 plus 35 years at least. So they've been in my possession. Now, the one caveat I'll say is, as a teenager or even as a young adult, did I take the best care of these comic books when I bought? Like, did I bring them home from the store and sleeve them with a backboard? And no. A lot of these were sitting in my house on a shelf, stacked with a bunch of it for years. And then eventually, as I got older, I moved out of my parents' house, and I was like, oh, I got to protect some of these. Some of these might be worth some money at some day. And so I did do that eventually. So, and I'll talk about that when I go through some of these. But there was about 15 or 16 of them that I wanted to get graded, but I didn't want to do too many. So I brought 8 of them with me to get graded. And again, there's a cost associated with it, so I want to be kind of mindful of that. So I brought them. I got them back.
Let's go.
The process was great. Dropped them off at Comic-Con. CGC is fantastic. They acknowledge they've received them. They acknowledge that they're in their grading process.
I was shocked at how little time it took to do all that.
Yeah, it took about, I'd say, like 2 weeks total to get them back.
When you were at Comic-Con, dropping them off and registering them.
Nothing.
Yeah.
It was like, that was like a no-brainer. You just sign it, they make sure, hey, we are now in possession of these books or whatever. But I got them back in a little over 2 weeks. They go through the whole process of grading them and encapsulating them and everything else, and I've got them here. So we'll walk through each one of them, and we'll kind of talk through them. And again, I'll give reasons why I did certain ones that I did. All right. So
I think I'm going to go live when you're unboxing them.
Well, they're unboxed. Go live. All right. And again, I haven't looked at any of these. I don't know what the grades are. And there are grading notes. So I could look these up, and they'll give kind of comments as to why they were graded a certain way at some point in time. But I'll kind of go through each one of these as we go through them and see what we got.
Well, that's a big fucking rating.
Yeah. All right. So first one is and again, one of the best things about grading your comics is they are now protected. So they come in this nice hard plastic shell. So the first one here is Watchmen #1. So this comic book was it came out in, let's see what year it came out. I wrote some notes down here. 1986 was when the first Watchmen comic book came out, and this was a limited series, came out in DC. And at the time, it was a new story about new characters, about a dystopian kind of universe, and it was really interesting. Became so popular that they made a movie about it, and then ultimately HBO Max had a television series about it.
Nice.
So Watchmen, we got a 9.2 rating, which is anything over is 9 is great. 9.2 rating. And I did buy this one secondhand. So I did not have the original. I bought it probably in like a couple of years after it came out. I saw they had it
again. Can I see it?
Yeah. There you go. Watchmen.
Nice.
But it's an iconic comic book, and I'm glad I got it rated. And so the estimated value of this comic is about $60. So pretty good. Yeah, I'm happy with the rating, and happy that we got it rated. So these next two I'll kind of talk through. And they're both the same comic, and we got 2 different ones. I bought 2 of them at the time I bought them. And the reason I bought the 2 of them, it's Usagi Yojimbo. So this was a comic that came out in 1987. And I was in the comic book store when this comic book came out, and I'll show the audience at home. I was in the store when this book came out, and they were like, you should buy this. Like the guy who owned the store said, you should buy this. This comic book's going to be worth something someday. And the reason for that was it was a series that was created by Stan Saki, who's very well renowned in the comic book industry, and he based his story on a rabbit Ronin, Miyamoto Usagi, who is a samurai basically, and so this comic book's been out for 37 years now.
Pretty good rating.
And yeah, I've got two of them. I bought two of them because somebody said you should buy this. It's going to be worth something. I got a 9.8 and a 9.6 on both of those. So that's pretty good.
Yeah.
And again, these are two that I bought the day they came out in the store. So very cool. And their estimated value is $125.
That's not bad.
$125 a piece. So that's pretty good. The next one.
Now you're cooking with oil. Here we go.
This is I did this for a couple of reasons. This is Hulk #1. So Hulk Volume 2, if anybody's interested, Hulk Volume 2 #1. This is the first portrayal of the Red Hulk in the comic books.
Right.
The first time the Red Hulk has ever been seen in the comic books was Hulk #1. Started the entire storyline of the Red Hulk, and ultimately we then found out the Red Hulk was actually Thunderbolt Ross, which we are now going to be seeing in Captain America 4, Brave New World. And I wanted to get this rated because of that. I think it's going to go up in value when the movie comes out. And so I got this one rated. We got a 9.6 on this one.
Strong.
And again, I bought this one when it came out. And matter of fact, I have several. I think I have Hulk 1 through 7 or 8. Read most of that storyline talking about the Red Hulk and kind of finding out, Red Hulk ended up going around killing a bunch of other gamma irradiated characters. So very cool. So I wanted to get that one rated because of that. So that one's estimated value right now is about $75, but I believe this is going to be at least $100 plus comic book sometime in the near future, especially as we get to the Red Hulk being in Captain America.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it'll bounce. It'll bounce.
All right. Now let's get into the meat and potatoes. Hermetically sealed.
Yeah, you struggling over there? You need a knife?
Yeah.
He's opening up the boxes.
They do such a great job making sure that your comics are secure when you send them back to you, in the same or not better condition than you sent them to them. All right, so these are the ones that I kind of had more value behind. So let's not start with that one. Let's start with this one first because it's a little bit kind of leads into it. So this is and again, these comics, Amazing Spider-Man number 299.
Wow.
I've got, again, I was a subscriber at the time of Amazing Spider-Man. I bought Amazing Spider-Man every week for many, many years. And anybody knows Amazing Spider-Man number 299, it's famous for two reasons. One, it is the first comic book that Todd McFarlane drew. When he came on board as a Marvel artist, started drawing Spider-Man, and Spider-Man 299 was his first book. Was also the first, we'll say, appearance, quote unquote, of the Venom character, and so it's a very quintessential and iconic comic book because of that reason. And its value is estimated at $140.
Hey,
yeah, $140
wow.
for Spider-Man 299 and
Wow.
a 9.2 rating, so pretty good.
That's a
very
great
happy
rating.
about that. And
Yeah.
again, I've owned that comic since it came out in 1988.
Wow.
So yeah, that came out a long time ago. Now this one, Spider-Man number 300.
Ooh, and that is significant. We all know why.
Yep. So Spider-Man number 300 is the first official appearance of the Venom character. Uh, so when Brock got the symbiote from Peter Parker and became the Venom character, and Peter Parker got rid of the black costume for the first time with Spider-Man 300. Again, Todd McFarlane's second issue, and that is the first, official when the real Venom character became real, Spider-Man 300. So a 9.0 rating for this one, really good. And by the way, this comic is valued at about $600. So really, really good. I'm really happy about that as well.
Great rating.
Yeah, anything over 9 is great. Speaking of the symbiote,
Ooh.
so the first appearance of the actual black costume in the Marvel Comics was in a limited series called Marvel Superheroes Secret Wars. And this was Secret Wars number 8. So the 8th edition of a limited series. So Marvel, in cooperation with the Hasbro Corporation, came out with a limited series called Marvel Superheroes Secret Wars because they wanted to sell toys. And that's what they did. And in issue number 8, Spider-Man is in a battle and his costume gets ripped up. And he's on this alien ship that the Beyonder had created, and he had to get a new costume. And he sat down at a desk and put his head underneath this thing and said, "Hey, I need a new costume." And it created one for him, and it just went over top of him. And all of a sudden, he had this black costume that was kind of alive. So this is the first appearance of the black costume for Spider-Man in Superhero Secret Wars number 8. And the first kind of appearance of the symbiote, which later we would find out is alive and became Venom and everything else. So this one I'm really excited about. We got a 9.8 rating.
That's huge.
I bought this. So this comic book came out in 1984. I bought the entire Secret Wars series probably 3 years later in like 87 from my comic book store. They had all of them, and I wanted to read the story. So I've actually opened this comic and read through it many times. And that's the reason why I bought the series, because I want to read the stories. But I've had this for a long time, and its estimated value is $180. So $180 for a 9.8 Secret Wars number 8. And this is one of those iconic comics that you kind of want to own,
Yeah.
Secret Wars number 8. And my last one is kind of one of my prized possessions. And I'll say a couple things about it. It is one of the comics that I bought secondhand. So it is Wolverine number 1. This is a limited series that came out by Marvel. Wolverine number 1. It was Wolverine's first solo comic book. He had only been in the X-Men. First time they ever came out with a comic book that was just a Wolverine comic book. It was a limited series. It was done by Frank Miller and Chris Claremont, two of the most iconic and prolific writers and artists in comic book history. Frank Miller and Chris Claremont wrote this entire limited series. This is number 1, one of the most iconic covers. If I were ever to get a tattoo, it would be that. Just so we know, that's what I would get a tattoo of, or some facsimile of it. But this came out in 1982. So this comic book is now 42 years old.
Wow.
That's crazy to think about. I did buy it secondhand. I saw it on display, and I was like, I need to have that comic book. I want it because he's my favorite character. And I ended up buying it. So I did buy it secondhand, and we got an 8.0 rating. Again, there may be some, foxing of the edges or whatever, that there might be some reasons behind that rating. I have to look at the notes, but it's actually in pretty good shape. But an 8.0 rating, I'm not upset about for this comic. Again, this comic is worth about $175. in mint condition. So, I mean, this is probably worth a little bit less, but Wolverine #1, it's again one of my prized possessions. I didn't get these comic books rated so I could sell them. I got them rated because I wanted them rated and I wanted them protected, and I love having them. So
No, it's smart. It's a good idea.
yeah,
That's cool.
very cool though.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
Awesome.
those are the 8 I got rated. Very, very cool.
That's very cool. Thank you. We just went live on TikTok, but thank you everybody that was following us on TikTok. Appreciate it. So, all right, Professor. Well, let's ring the bell.
All right. Well, that's it for us this week. We'll be back next week for more Super Talk. To get in touch with us on social media, hit us up via email, supertalkpodcast@outlook.com, or @SuperTalkPod on Twitter. Until then, stay super, everyone.
Corn on the cob, the man. Black Viper. Everyone likes this game. Haters